We'll call this special voting session order on April 23rd, 2024 at 6:07 PM. Roll call, please.
Mr. Eimer,
Present.
Mr. Bateman,
Present.
Mr. Sanders,
Present.
Mrs. McClellan,
Present.
Mr. Parrott,
Present.
Mr. Downs,
Present.
Mrs. Ross,
Present.
Mrs. O'Donoghue.
Present.
Okay. Is there anybody who'd like to speak under public participation? Okay, for the record, there is no public participation during this meeting. Item number 4 is the approval of budget resolution fiscal year 2024-2025. Treasurer Conzo?
Thank you, Mayor. I think you've all received copies of this, and we discussed it in some detail during the special committee of the whole meeting for that purpose. Last week, I have been advised that we do need to make possibly one change to that, and that's under legal services, contract services legal, page 4, in keeping with measure that's scheduled for the committee of the whole following this meeting. The current amount in there reflects a 4% increase, that $95,462. I would recommend at this point we increase that by 1 percentage point, which would be $96,380.
Is there we need to make a motion on the item. Is there a motion to approve item number 4?
I make the motion to approve.
I second that.
Alderman Eimer made the motion. Alderman Downs, second. Okay. Ms. O'Donoghue, you have a question?
What's the purpose of raising it 1%?
I believe the proposed contract provides for a 5% increase instead of a 4% increase, which will come up in the committee of the whole meeting.
Yeah, when the budget was being prepared, we did not have the contract at that time, the proposed contract that you will be discussing in the committee of the whole. That proposed contract is for 5% for this fiscal year and then 444. Because the budget doesn't account for that, when you get to that item, then obviously the money wouldn't be budgeted for it. So that's not to say that you have to approve what's being proposed, but it would be cleaner if the budget at least accounted for that request. That's the request. Mr. Bateman?
If the two alder persons sitting next to me worked on the budget for over a month, why was that not discussed until tonight after we're voting on the budget?
As I said, we didn't have the contract at the time.
And at that point in time, we proceeded based on the information we had, which did not include the proposed contract.
Did we ask for that information ahead of time?
I didn't personally, but I believe someone did. I believe the mayor asked for it. So that's
There were requests made for that document, yes. Because we did not have the document and we had to make a decision to get the budget ready for council review, I instructed the treasurer to simply put 4444 in there, and that is what the budget committee discussed and apparently agreed to. Mr. Bateman?
I think we should move it back to 4, 4, and 4 because the budget was worked on and passed.
it wasn't.
On the information we had at the time. When we asked for information and didn't get the information, we had to go by what we had.
Well, you can certainly do that when we get to the committee of the whole meeting, but I'm simply saying the proposed item in the agenda is asking for 5 in the first year.
But to amend it before we vote tonight is asking for 5.
No, it is budgeting for 5. Just because you budget it doesn't mean you have to spend it. You don't have to approve this recommendation. You can simply keep the budget as proposed. I'm just giving you forewarning that that is an item in the committee of the whole meeting to follow, and you'll have to have that discussion now or later. Ms. Rolfs?
Which line item is that, Mr. Conzo?
Alderman Rolfs, that is on page 4, and it's 02-0404-5227.
Mr. Bateman?
So procedurally, if the amendment doesn't pass, there is a time later that we could, if people are satisfied with the the contract and the work, being proposed, we could amend the budget later then.
We could do a
That's-
budget amendment.
That's
later.
correct, and you could include it in the appropriation, which in the end is the governing document.
Anybody else on the council have an opinion on how to proceed? We can do it now, or we can, if you approve the contract as proposed, we can do a budget amendment afterwards. Mr. Downs, you look like you have a question.
Not I do have a question, but not in regards to this
Okay.
1%.
Okay. Okay, so it doesn't appear that there is a motion to amend. So
I thought you made
he made a motion to approve the budget,
1%.
approve the budget as requested. We would now have to have keep me honest, Mr. Attorney, but we would then have to amend this item to include the 1%, correct?
So yes, you brought the original item to the fore, and then I believe you would need an additional motion and second to approve an amended request that's been put before you.
Mr. Reimer's motion and your second was to simply approve the item as presented on the agenda. To increase it, to increase the budget to account for a possible 5% increase in the contract for the city attorney, you would have to have an amendment to the motion.
So, okay, so I'll make an amendment to
The motion,
the motion.
okay?
I'll second.
Okay, so for the amendment, Alderman Downs made the motion and Alderman Eimer second. Further discussion on this? Okay, so roll call on the amendment.
Mr. Eimer,
Yes.
Mr. Bateman,
No.
Mr. Sanders,
Yes.
Mrs. McClellan,
Yes.
Mr. Parrott,
Yes.
Mr. Downs,
Yes.
Mrs. Ross,
Yes.
Mrs. O'Donahue.
Yes.
Okay. Is there further discussion on item number 4 as amended? Alderman Downs.
I was just seeking a little bit of clarification. I had a constituent reach out to me with a question that I couldn't answer. Well, I think we even talked about this, but I didn't remember the exact answer, so I figured I'd bring it up here. Under the hotel motel tax, line item number 55-000-7011. Last year we budgeted for $11,000, and this year we're budgeting for $20,000. What was the purpose of that?
Mr. Treasurer, I believe a portion of that is Third Fridays.
No, Third Friday is a separate line. Alderman Downs, I believe, if you're looking at line, the object number 7011 under Fund 55,
Yes.
that is, it's 10,000 in the current budget.
No, it's.
What do you, I don't know.
Oh yeah, no, you're right. It was 20,000 in
2 years
23.
ago.
Yeah. Okay.
And the reason we have lowered that is that at one time there was a more significant balance in the hotel motel fund, during which time there was no tourism bureau. And as that organization has been established, we have set aside 95% of the proceeds of that hotel motel tax to go to that organization. As a result of that, the fund balance for that is expected to be much less than it had been. So we have cut back a little bit on some of those things, in particular that item.
That is fine. I was looking at it wrong. Anyways, I was
different
thinking. Yeah, I was. Yeah. So thank you.
Easy to do that. Yeah. Happens a lot.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, Mr. Conzo.
Just a couple of things here. Since this was all put together, I have gotten a tax computation report from the city clerk, and it looks like from the county clerk. But I gave it to the city clerk when I got it. It looks like our tax increment should be better for the TIF district than we had anticipated. Last year, the projection was for 128,000. We only received 108,000 from that, but there were a lot of buildings that were in the process of going through tax sale because the owners didn't pay the taxes on it, and they were primarily the same owner. In any case, we got less there than we had anticipated. The projection for this year is 164,000, which is not reflected in the revenue projection in the budget because we didn't know it till we got this document. We don't need to amend the budget to reflect that because the revenue projections are just projections. And when we do the appropriation, we'll amend it accordingly. I don't know whether we'll get the full 164,000. There may still be delinquent properties in there, which would be less than, would result in us receiving less than the full 164,000. But that's a considerable jump from 128,000 to 164,000, and I think I had projected at 133 or somewhere around there. And I think a lot of that is the result of some of these programs we've had. Economic development grants and the facade grants, I think, have helped a lot to build up the business district and has made these properties worth more. In addition, they've been sold off to people who actually will pay the taxes on them. So I think that's good. And I did mention in in correspondence with all of you that we probably won't have the amount of ARPA funds we had last year for the economic development grants, but I would certainly recommend that we maintain those at the level at which they are, at which they appear in the budget. And the facade grants, which were not ever funded through the economic development grants.
Ms. Rolfs?
With the anticipated 164,000, and the average payment is usually around 175,000 for the TIF, that means that we should have less money coming out of the general revenue fund to make up the difference between what the actual amount that we pay, according to this.
Yes.
We should have more money. in the-
That's correct. If we get the full 164, it's 164, 482.16 to be exact. If we get all of that, I think, and the payments generally are 175, 176,000. So you'd have 11 or 12. You'd only need about 11 or 12,000 to transfer from the general fund to the TIF fund to make those bond payments. Even if we get less than that, the amount of that transfer should be less than what I had projected initially in the revenue projection, and that's always a good thing.
That is the most that we've ever gotten.
Pardon me?
That is the most we've ever gotten for the TIF.
By
Fund,
far,
yes.
Alderman Rolfs, that's correct, and that is the most we've ever received.
It's about time.
I know. It's been a long process.
Trying to break even for a while, haven't we?
Yeah, the EAV in that district has gone up in the last year, and the year, we did have well, I won't go through the whole process over the last 10 years with it, but let's just say it's gone up, significantly between last year and the current year.
Any other discussion? Okay, if not, roll call on item number 4 as amended.
Mr. Downs?
Yes.
Mrs. Ross?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Donahue?
Yes.
Mr. Eimer?
Yes.
Mr. Bateman?
Yes.
Mr. Sanders?
Yes.
Mrs. McCullen?
Yes.
Mr. Parrott?
Yes.
Okay. Is there any other discussion?
Just one thing, Mayor.
Mr. Gonzo?
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to thank both Alderman McClellan and Alderman Sanders for a lot of hours they put in on this. I think we met about 4 times and over a period of about 12 hours, probably. Isn't that about right? And also each and every one of the department heads, every single one of them, and their assistants, Deputy Chief and Susie Pegram and a number of others came in and helped us to really arrive at what I think is a sound budget. And as always, the city clerk for a lot of information that she's provided for purposes of calculating the payments for health insurance and a number of other things that are kind of across the board that don't apply to any single department, but do have a significant impact on the budget, liability insurance, and some of the other things. And she spent a lot of time on that. And the mayor who also provided a lot of good and valuable input. And I just want to say that it's a real team effort, and I think that we had a lot of good people work on this, which is why it's done. So,
And thank you to you as well for leading all of those discussions. A lot of time and effort for the enormous amount of money that you received from the city.
Somebody told me it was too much not long ago, so.
They should come visit you one day at City Hall. Okay, any other discussion? Okay, Ms. Rolfs, did you have it? Okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Alderman Downs made the motion, Alderman Eimer second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Meeting is adjourned at 6:22 PM.